This is the Messiah Hour with Ari Lewis.
Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the Messiah Hour here on Israel Sports and News Radio. Thank you for joining us. We have a great show today. At any time, you can email the program at messiahhour@gmail.com or the station at Israel Sports and News Radio @gmail.com. A lot of rumors are circulating that Jonathan Pollard, the man who's in prison in the United States for being quote-unquote a spy to Israel, may be released in the fall. Here to discuss this is Israel Sports and News Radio's North American correspondent, Lesley Ann Stoffel. Lesley, how you doing out there?
Good, Ari. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'll be doing even better if Jonathan Pollard will be freed. He's been in prison for 30 years for the crime of quote-unquote espionage to an ally. The average sentence for that is 2 years, the most before Jonathan Pollard 4, yet he has been in prison 30 years. Why would he be released now? Many Israeli politicians, many groups have tried to get him released for 30 years. Why would anything be different now?
My instincts, and not just my instincts, but I've been listening to a lot of analysts and commentary and reading stuff on this, is that the Obama administration is using him as a pawn and leverage and whatever in this Iran deal with to kind of, you know, blackmail Israel in a way. Like basically the bottom line, from I might be saying this in kind of a crude manner, but I don't know, but this is just what I think, that he's being used as a human pawn in this situation, and for me, in my opinion, that kind of thing is absolutely despicable. I mean, just despicable. If he can be released now over this, then obviously he's been held for too long. Like, if they can all of a sudden go, oh, okay, well, we can, I mean, I know his 30 years is coming up in November, I think it is, that he would by law be released. But as you say, his sentence was way, way, way over the top. Like, many people have said this. Glick, Dershowitz, you know, the list goes on of people that are intelligent commentators and people who know him and have looked into this, have said that his sentence was way, way too long. And it seems, you know, it's disturbing that a Jewish man is being treated this way, and then, you know, first of all, given such a long sentence, and then second of all, he is being treated as a human pawn. And I even read something about this might have even been a couple of years ago, where the U.S. government actually admitted that they were holding him for a time when they would really need him. That's what I read, and it was from a good source. Now, I can't remember where it was or what it was, but they did say that. It has been admitted to that.
Let me ask you this, and I know that, you know, I'm in Israel, and I'm obviously a fan of Israel, but there are rumors out there that Israel wants him in jail because it was an embarrassment what happened. It made Israel look bad because Israel sent a spy to cover the United States. And there's even part of this old Pollard story of how he got caught was he was at an Israeli embassy. They wouldn't let him in. So how much is it that Israel's not doing enough, or maybe they want him in prison deep down?
Well, I was listening to something, his wife was talking, and she actually thinks that too. She believes that he was thrown under the bus by, I can't remember if it was his ex-wife or his wife now, anyway. But anyway, she was saying that he believes that he was thrown under the bus by Israel, and he was abandoned by his... Part of the story is that he was abandoned by his handlers. And part of the story is that, yes, Israel has not worked hard enough to help get him out, and they have left him there. You know, that's part of the story. So that very well is, you know, probably true. There are many levels of these machinations that go on within these high levels of government, so that could very well be true, and if it is, that is also very, very sad. But as we know, Ari, throughout history, the Jewish history, which is a sad, a disappointing part of the Jewish history, sometimes the Jewish people turn on their own, or they don't, stand in the moral, take the moral high ground as they should as the Jewish people in a certain situation. I mean, yeah, the guy did something, but he from what I understand, he was trying to help Israel. Those others on the other side say, oh, he was just out for himself trying to make money, whatever. That there's probably shades of gray within there. Okay. But yeah, I can see from what I have heard and read, yes, that is true. That could very well be true.
I mean, and I'm going to be pretty hard on Netanyahu because Netanyahu promised way back in 2008 that if he was elected, 2007, he pledged that if he was reelected as prime minister, he would bring back Pollard's Release. Well, Bibi, if you're listening, that's 8 years ago. And
yeah.
Bibi apparently claimed he tried during Clinton's administration, but was quote-unquote lied to. But in any case, Bibi's not doing enough. Really, the people in power aren't doing enough. And
yeah.
I think, though, that anything can be done through grassroots. We saw with the Gilad Shalit deal that basically Gilad's parents just slept in front of the prime minister's house until they got his son back. So anything can be done. Just question people really want it. What would you do if you were in charge of the Israeli government? And you probably would do a better job than Bibi, Lesley, to tell you the truth. But what would you do?
Oh my gosh, Ari, I don't know.
What would you do if you were in charge to get Pollard back?
Oh man, well, I think I really would have demanded him to be released a long time ago, just for the simple fact of the humanitarian standpoint of it. He has been in there way too long, and he's also not a well man. He's sick. He's physically unwell, and to withstand that kind of pressure, I think is terrible. I honestly myself, gosh, you just don't know what goes on behind the scenes and why this is done. We just don't know all the ins and outs of it. But just the bottom line, from a moral standpoint, I personally would have tried to get him out if I had the power to do that a long time ago, because he has served his sentence. He has served his time, and for him to be treated in this way, and then to be on the other, see the part that he is used as a human pawn as well. That's the part that really just makes me so angry. That should not happen. That is so wrong.
Well, I guess the question is, how much should Israel give up to get him back? Because if he is being used as a pawn, okay, that's not nice, but that's the situation. We really want him back. What would be worth getting him back? We really want him back. Let's say Obama says, we'll give him back, but you have to freeze the building and settlements for 1 year, whatever. What's the price to get him back, in your opinion? What would be worth it?
Oh man, I see. For me, I'm against settlement freezing and all that kind of stuff. So it's so hard to ask me because I'm not a politician. I just think in these terms of what's morally correct and what would I do. It just depends on Pollard himself. I think he even said himself that he didn't want to be released if it meant hurting the state of Israel in some way or another. So, Ari, it's just really hard for me to say. I really don't know how far they should go on that. I really don't. I don't think they should set more precedents for freezing freezing so-called settlements. I think they should somehow play a hard line and not tie it in with something like that. I think they should just do it. It should just be done on humanitarian grounds.
Again, this is the Messiah Hour here at Israel Sports and News Radio. We're talking about Jonathan Pollard potentially being released in the fall. The fall will be his 30th anniversary, not of being in prison, but since he was arrested. Of course, he was in jail since he was arrested, hasn't seen freedom since then, so that'd be the 30-year anniversary. Lesley, I want to talk a little bit more about the people that stand up for him. There are different causes. They're standing up for Jonathan Pollard, and I want to know how that's perceived in the United States, because I have friends personally that have visited him. They're trying to work on getting him out. In Israel, it is almost 100% consensus that everyone wants him out. There's no one in Israel says he should stay in prison. There's signs all over that say free Jonathan Pollard. In America, though, I noticed it is a bit different. You even have prominent Jewish people that say he should be in prison. What's the mood like now? Do people feel like he should be out of prison at this point? Most people.
Well, what I can, there's not a lot of press coverage on this really here, but I was looking on some YouTube videos and stuff about this, and there are a lot of American people who make comments on these YouTube videos, and they actually think he should stay in prison and not be freed at all. There are a lot of, I think, on the American side of things, many would like him to stay in prison because they see him as a traitor.
Right, they see him as a traitor, and again, there was Casper Weinberger, who's actually half Jewish.
Yes.
He was a big part of Pollard being in prison, getting a life sentence. And
Yes.
Basically, but I want to know, but that was back in the 80s. Do you think people have switched their tune since then?
I don't think so. I think there are still some people that I know. I really did. I was surprised and shocked when I saw these recent comments on different YouTube videos and things where people really did think this. They wanted him to stay there, and they thought he was, they thought he was a traitor, and they just thought he should stay in jail, and that's it.
And what's interesting about all this, if you take a look at how he got this guilty sentence, there was a lot of legal things that went on because they agreed to a sentence which would not be as serious. The judge threw that out and gave a life sentence. Also, Pollard should have had a couple opportunities to appeal, had very poor counseling, a lot of suspicious things that were going on. Talk a bit about that for our audience.
Now that part, actually, that is interesting because I just heard his the wife talk about that. He was given he's only had pro bono.
Pro bono attorneys, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
You figured someone would have paid for an attorney. This was a very high-profile case.
Exactly. So he's only had pro bono attorneys, which and so he's had to kind of take what he can get, and they haven't had the expertise. Well, I shouldn't say. I mean, they're probably fine lawyers and everything like that, but they haven't had the expertise for this kind of a case and what he needs. And actually, what she was asking for was she was saying, she was actually saying to Bibi, to the Israeli government, can you please just step up? He has not had very good legal counsel at all, and that's probably been part of the problem.
Yes, indeed. Again, this is the Messiah Hour here on Israel Sports News Radio. We're talking about Jonathan Pollard potentially being released in the fall. My guest is Lesley Ann Stoffel. So how close do you think he has been to being released in the past? We know potentially on Clinton's last day in office there was some talk. There's been talk on the last day of office of the past few presidents who have served as president while Pollard's been in prison: Reagan, H.W. Bush, Clinton, W., and then Obama towards the end. How close do you think he has been to being released?
Well, the last time this happened, I trying to follow it, and they were saying he was getting close to being released, and then all of a sudden it didn't happen. From what I have read about this, like I said earlier, he's been, I think they've done it as a way to maybe make themselves look for something big, to trade for something big. So I don't think they ever had any intention of letting him go. I think they wanted to keep him, like I said, in that article I read, it was very fascinating. They were actually wanting, he's a very big prize that they wanted to hold on to for something they needed to trade for.
You were talking about Obama kind of dangling him maybe to try to get Israel to give up something. What are the chances, though, that another year and a half, that Pollard will be released in that time? What are the odds of it?
Given Obama's record on things where, he typically doesn't do the morally right thing. He normally does something that is kind of backwards and doesn't make a lot of sense to people who are looking at the situation thinking it should go one way and it usually goes the other with him. It's very hard to say. I would say that if he was in charge of it, he probably wouldn't let him go unless he could get something really big out of Israel that has to do with Iran.
There are rumors about that within 30 years he has to be eligible for parole, but they may make an exception, obviously serious charge in the United States.
I don't think Obama and the people around him and the people in this State Department that is so pro-Iran and pro-jihad, I don't think if they're able to, I think they'll hold him until they can extract something very big out of the Israeli government. Honestly, that's what I think.
Again, this is the Messiah Hour here on Israel Sports News Radio. My guest is Lesley Ann Stoffel. We're talking about Jonathan Pollard potentially being released in the fall. Now, you have also theory regarding Barack Obama because he does kind of backhand things. He's perhaps thinking about releasing other people. Maybe that's why he would release Pollard to talk about it, to make the other people maybe not look as bad if they're released.
Yeah, last year, President Barack Obama told an Israeli interview, I have no plans for releasing Jonathan Pollard immediately, but what I'm going to be doing is to make sure that he, like every other American who's been sentenced, is accorded the same kinds of review and the same examination of the equities that any other individual would provide. And so and then in different parts of the article, it goes into saying that they're saying, you know, they're pushing it onto the parole board, whatever the Federal Parole Commission considers, and they're kind of keeping a hands-off approach from it. But at the same time, as we speak, Obama is going around different prisons and visiting prisoners who have done drug deals and different sorts of stuff, and he's trying to lessen. He personally is getting involved in trying to lessen their sentences. So this is what I mean with Obama. Like he will do. He'll speak out of both sides of his mouth, so you never really know what he's going to do. But it's usually not siding with the right side. Do you know what I mean? Because as we've said, Pollard has gone way over what would be considered a sentence for what he did, and yet here we have Obama, you know, giving a hands-off approach, and very odd trying to decipher what Obama's going to do. But you can if it has to do with the Jews and it has to do with Israel, typically it's going to be something where he's going to take a very hard stance, a very hard line, and try to extract something out of them that is going to weaken them. That's my take on it, my opinion.
Well, part of the idea is that he wants to smooth over things with Israel because of the Iran deal, because a lot of people in Israel are upset about that. Mm-hmm. What do you buy that at all? That he would consider releasing Pollard because he wants to be friends with us, he doesn't want us to be mad at him because of the Iran deal?
I don't think it would have anything to do with wanting to be friendly or anything like that. I understand that countries have interests. They don't have friends. I used to hear Tamar Yonah say that all the time on her show. And she realized the realpolitik of the whole thing, of these situations. Obama's Iran deal, it doesn't put just Israel in a dangerous place and the so-called other American allies in the region. It gives Iran hegemony in the region, and it also puts the Western world in somebody even like me who's in Canada. I'm very, very worried to have Iran basically will get to the position where they can call the shots in the world. This really scares me. I think Pollard was being held for a situation just like this because Obama knew all along that he was going to be, he's been talking about it. He knew all along he was going to be trying to so-called normalize relations in the world with Iran for God knows what reason. You know, nothing was even asked of them about giving up their terror ways or anything, and even some of this money is going to be used for terrorism, and they know it, and whatever. So, but in Obama's world, this is all just fine and dandy. Like, whatever he needs to do to get what he wants, he will do it. The man lives, I've said it before, he lives by the moral relativism. In his mind, there is no right and wrong in the sense of from the classical way that we would think of it, from the Judeo-Christian way of viewing things. In his mind, whatever he has to do to get what he wants, to get Iran to have hegemony and have whatever they need, and however he's going to tie himself into this to make himself look good, that's all that matters. I think he's like a cluster B type of personality disorder. He's everything is about him. He doesn't care about what happens to anybody else, and he would definitely use a person to do that. And all the better to use a Jew to humiliate the Jews, to weaken the the Jewish state by doing this. It's a win for the Jews, for Jonathan Pollard and for Israel, but in a way it's a lose as well, because they still have to swallow the huge Iranian pill, and they've been weakened with it by having to give in to using Jonathan Pollard as a human pawn. So it's one of these Obama, twisted situations where you come out of it on the losing end even if you're winning. Do you know what I mean? He always has to twist everything around.
Right, so it could be something sinister. I want to say a couple more minutes on this issue. Let's say Obama does not release Pollard in the last remaining 18 months or so of his presidency. Would you see one of the presidential candidates potentially releasing him, Jeb Bush, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, etc.?
If they haven't done it in all this time, why would they do it after this? I honestly don't know, Ari. I really can't speculate on that. I can think, well, if perchance there's some kind of miracle and they want to have some kind of goodwill between the countries just to do it for that, maybe. And again, maybe on the, as a trading situation. It's just so hard to speculate on that because, as you can see, things happen and change so fast in our world now, and we've been dealing with moral relativism for quite a long time with our government and the intelligentsia. Obama, he uses that's his worldview in every situation, and so to try to decipher what somebody who believes that way, to try to decipher what they're going to do is very difficult because they don't do things from a right or wrong kind of stance, from a morally correct kind of stance.
All right, again, this is the Messiah Hour here on Israel Sports and News Radio. My guest is Lesley Ann Stoffel, and last question I want to ask you is regarding a document, they say a scroll that was found pretty recently. Tell us a bit about it.
This is really, really interesting. The most ancient Hebrew scroll since the Dead Sea Scrolls has been deciphered. So back in 1970, there was some archaeologists were doing an excavation in a synagogue in Gedi. It was these little parchments that were just so burnt and charred that they couldn't decipher them. But now they have the technology to do it and put it through these 3D scanning machines. So they put it through this 3D scanning machine, and they found the first 8 verses of the book of Leviticus were suddenly legible on this little scarred, charred scroll. And so this is huge too, because it shows once again the Jewish presence in the land of Israel there in the En Gedi area. So I had the press release, so I copied it and put it on my webpage with all the little photos and even a little video showing them putting it through the scanning machine and everything to read it. So if anybody wants to look at that at therealclearisrael.org, I've got it on there.
All right. So check out Lesley at therealclearisrael.org. Again, this has been another episode of the Messiah Hour. And if you'd like to make a financial contribution to the show, you can do so through my PayPal account, which is israelsportsradio.yahoo.com. Again, the PayPal is different than the station. That's israelsportsradio.yahoo.com. Lesley, thank you for being on the program and reporting some of the events of Jonathan Pollard. Hopefully he'll be released soon. We appreciate the time as always. And again, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Ari. Till next time.
Sounds good. Be well.